once you know what the larger trajectory of philosophy is, we begin to understand our everyday life, everyday actions, our beliefs, and ways of thinking far better. And I think that's really the function of what philosophy is. Philosophy as a discipline has led to things like, philosophy of management studies and business and so on. But I think at least in the context of Vedica, and I've been associated with it right from the first year we started, and I found it really inspiring to see men coming from many different backgrounds, social classes, educational backgrounds, all of them trying to be part of this world, whatever world, larger context, maybe the corporate world, the legal world, whatever. But the point is, they're all coming in as social beings, as women, for example. And many of the challenges in having women survive, institutions, survive with various kinds of social pressures, are basically questions which are very deeply matter to philosophy. The very kinds of questions which they deal with as professionals are often not about technical points. Technical, skill-based stuff are far more easier to engage with for them. The larger questions about what is the sociality, how do you engage with other people in an organization, how do you engage with power and authority, how do you engage with friendship, how do you engage with people who are around you, who may be competitive but supportive, and how do you then engage with the outside world, away from your job, openness to different perspectives, the ability to listen to others, and as I said, to bring a sense of mutual respect with whosoever they're dealing with. That's very important for any form of leadership, political or institutional, or within a classroom or within a house, that you're able to deal with people who may agree or disagree with you completely, but yet there are certain norms of respecting who they are as individuals and as people. And that can only come from a philosophical attitude, an attitude which cultivates that, which makes them look at themselves as just not as the final authority, the final answer, but as one among many other possibilities. When I first heard about this Women's Institute, I was a bit surprised because I thought, part of the movement away was to produce co-education spaces between women and relation, etc. But I've seen many of them, and I've seen women's only group, and I've talked to feminists, very committed feminists on the ground, and people who are activists, who also feels in some of these cases the women's only program has been really good. I think from my experience, I think it's really good. The reason is because in a society which is already so hierarchical, and in which all kinds of, these kinds of power relations between men and women operate in very subtle ways or subconscious ways. Although you may have, although it is an opportunity to educate men into recognizing questions of gender and so on, it's a fact that they all recognize, they share lived experiences, they recognize the particular difficulties that they all face. Whether they may like somebody or not, at least they recognize the kinds of experiential backgrounds they come from. And I think always with men, it can skew this. And I don't know in future how Vedica will want to look at it, but if one of the important things of the Vedica program was to retain women in labor force in India, to produce women leaders, then you need to have that, like they say, safe space, right? You need a safe intellectual space to cultivate that.